Okay, we are live. Hi, everyone who's just going to be popping on and joining us. We are in the weekly show called Reach and Teach. With us today is my friend James Adams, and we'll introduce you in a second, but he's hanging out with us today. And this show is focused on reaching people and teaching people, i.e., evangelism and discipleship. And specifically, we're trying to help you equip you with like really practical stuff around this digital world that we're all swimming in forever, but especially in this crazy time. So, hey, James, introduce yourself to us.
Hi, I'm James Adams. Joe and I have known each other for 7 years now, I guess. We go to the same church, and I run a company called Visual Media Church. That's kind of my main thing. And yeah, I do church media, basically creating worship background, service intro stuff, stock video, pretty much everything related to church media.
Yeah, and so how did this even maybe just start? Like, I mean, you've been doing this now for a while. This has grown for you, but could you kind of talk about like where this came out of? Like, why did this company need to exist?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not the first one to do it, and it's been around. There's been people doing some great work for a long time. But what I found is in our church, especially around, let's say, 5 years ago, we had some songs that were very much basically like nature based. Like we were talking about rivers and oceans and crashing waves and all these songs. And then
Yeah,
what we'd be using as visuals would be not that, nothing would be related to what we were singing about. And me being an outdoorsy person and loving being outdoors, and that's kind of where I connect with God. Like I go for a hike if I need time to pray because I can't sit in a quiet room. My mind races. But as soon as I'm outside exerting some energy and looking at the beauty of nature is when I find that I connect with God. So I kind of was like, why haven't we brought this into our worship services? And there were some things like that, but not to like a level where I come from a video background and I couldn't find anything that was really like cinematic and shot in different places throughout the world.
yeah.
And so just seeing that it wasn't out there, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to go and do it. So I decided to come up with Visual Media Church. And I remember my first thing was I basically went to my wife and I said, I want to spend 2 grand to go somewhere without you. And I'm going to film for an entire week. And she was like, this seems like a crazy idea, but I get it. I see your heart behind it. And so I basically just went off. My first trip, I went to Iceland. I spent 7 days there. I slept in the back of a car and brought a tent and just camped on the side of the road and brought my camera gear. And that was kind of the birth of it, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And I mean, from there, now you're a team with, like, you're in your office now, but your employees are not. So you have a team of
I am
people
alone.
who
Yeah,
work with you, but you're in this, like, everyone's at home, but because you're the only one there, you're able to go to the office, I guess. So,
absolutely.
what's going on in what are you seeing right now in you live and breathe church media. So what are you seeing as trends? What are you seeing that people need right now, and how are you trying to and maybe the second is like how are we equipping them, or like we want to, again, this whole thing is all about trying to equip people, resource people. Anything we talk about, we're going to link. Any questions you have for either of us, throw up in the comments. Say hey if you're here. Tell us where you're listening from. If you know James, say hey to James. But what are you seeing right now as how are you serving people as a company right now? What's going on?
Well, first let me say what like I'm noticing, and what I'm noticing for sure is that church creatives, church communicators are actually having to take a bigger role and responsibility within their church because we all know that there are a lot of churches that were kind of being online was kind of a secondary thing, and
Yeah.
rightly so. Like we are a community, and meeting in person, I really do value as being the number one thing. But all that changed really fast for a lot of people, and so all of a sudden, the online was the only thing. And what that meant is leaders and pastors and preachers all said to the creative people, "Okay, make it happen, and make it happen like tomorrow, right?" And so what I'm seeing is a lot of creative people are working a lot harder than they ever have. They're also learning a lot more than they ever thought they would learn, and they're having to just put on more hats than they even had before. And so I'm seeing a lot of people jumping into video editing for the first time. I'm seeing people learning how to live stream for the first time, how to edit for the first time. A lot of questions around editing software and how do I make this look good and how do I launch that? And that is the thing that changed really fast for a lot of people. And so that's where with Visual Media Church, we've just been trying to create as many resources to we're trying to shave off constantly an hour of people's workday. So if you are trying to edit things or making a church like intro video for your service, well, we want to provide a template. So instead of spending 5 hours creating, which you don't have anymore, you only have to spend 1 hour to make it look good because we've kind of pre-done some of that work for you. And so that's what I'm noticing what's going on in a lot of churches is the creative teams and the communications teams are just having to scramble because now they're doing way more things and everything changed about the nature of your job. What used to be a normal weekly schedule has been flipped, right? Because now people are prepping to film on a Wednesday and then they're editing on Thursdays and Fridays and uploading. And they are now taking the lead. They are now having to lead and instruct pastors and teachers on here's how our schedule needs to change this week in order to pull this off. And so now you're being thrust into a leadership position, even more so than you probably already were, because people are really relying on your knowledge, your expertise, and just the things that you bring to the table now are kind of right at the top.
Yeah, I just see, if I can add this in here for a second, Tara Adrian Hoyt is saying, it's so true, like the learning curve is steep. She's in part-time church communicator in Cambridge. I'm not sure if that's Cambridge, England or Cambridge, Canada, like Cambridge, Ontario. But
they're both great.
But both are true. There's probably people in both Cambridges right now. That's this thing about this global change. Not only is this something we've never dealt with or expected to deal with 2 months ago, but it's global. Like never before have we seen, and I know I say this partly because you and I both work with organizations around the world. And we're seeing the same conversations not just happen in America and Canada. It's Australia and it's Europe and I mean, we all know it's South African friends
everywhere.
of mine are dealing
Absolutely.
with this, trying to figure it out in their church. So I don't know, church communications people, where are you tuning in from? But let us know where you are because you're dealing with this wherever you are. And so on one level, James, like when we were just talking before we went live, we just want to encourage people like, you're doing a great job. You've been thrown into something you didn't expect. And in the meantime, you're also probably like caring for kids or aging parents or dealing with financial insecurities or just trying to go to the grocery store or, many, many other things that were just part of life that has made this whole thing such a challenge. Now, on the other level, I've heard from a lot of people, and maybe, James, you relate to this. It's the thing that we want to say, oh, cool, I just see someone here. Estera Nicula is from Romania. So I'd love to know, Estera, what's going on in Romania. Just as an FYI, Estera, I used to live in Romania. My dad had a job there when I was a kid. So I lived in Romania for a few years of my childhood. It's a country that means a lot to me personally. So I'd love to know what's going on in the Romanian church. Would love to hear more about that and connect with you about that. But yeah, so the thing that some people in church communications or media land, because now we, as you've said, we're kind of like leading in a way we haven't had before. For some of us, the thing we don't know how to say well is like, actually, it's kind of fun on some level. Like, this is a horrible time, and we're not trying to make less of that. But there's this energy, excitement, creativity, innovation that's happening for us as church communicators that is bringing our skill and probably the value we have in our organizations up. Do you know what I mean by that, James? Like, there's that part of it that's kind of like the adrenaline.
For a lot of people, it's not what you had planned or not the way you wanted it to happen, but you're being forced to adapt. And there's something kind of releasing about not being asked to adapt or being told to adapt, but being forced to. Like, you don't have a choice. You're going to adapt. You're going to learn. And I think it takes away the responsibility of either getting into a conflict about wanting to do more online with your church, or it's just kind of, it is happening. We're going to do it. And now I'm going to do it. And it's less pressure. It's pressure in that you do have to accomplish it, but it's less pressure in that you're now just trying to do it to keep up with the Joneses or trying to keep up with the church down the line. Like, you're literally just trying to survive. And so there's some release in that and just saying, you know what, it's not going to be perfect. I've seen a few people say, We've gotten complaints about how our live stream was crashing a few times last week, or our Facebook premiere didn't work and we ended up being a half an hour late. And I think there's just something like releasing to say we're doing our best. The global church is doing our best, and it's not going to be perfect, but we're all adapting here and just have grace and patience. And I think that really, I've noticed it that it's actually building community to be stronger. Like when we get back into a building together as a church, it is going to be a celebration like we probably haven't seen for a while, because there's a lot of churches, especially in North America, we haven't had to deal with struggle very often. And so to get through this, like I'm in the mindset of I want to be building to that moment, whenever that might be. And it's going to be different from country to country, place to place. Who knows how long that will be? But I'm in the mindset, like I already can't wait for that moment. And so let's get there. Let's work hard. Let's make our online experience great. And then when we get back to, normal life in some way, shape, or form, we'll have a great in-service, but we'll probably still now have a great online experience for those that can't come to the in-service, whether it's elderly at home. Like you are now building all those foundations to be able to connect with more people beyond just what your church walls can hold.
Yeah, and I'm seeing a stare out for the person watching in Romania. She's just talking about basically in Romania, what she's saying is, most churches weren't online in Romania, and that's true in many parts of the world. And now they're trying to figure out the whole thing, and they're struggling. So we're here to equip people and how to reach and how to teach in this time. So do you have some really like basic stuff? Like if people, what are some programs you might recommend, or some gear that people have, maybe even around the house? Like what could people use to make this thing happen?
I think the easiest thing, and this is the same solution whenever you're facing new technology problems, is go simple. Like just go as simple as possible. If it means you're just going to put your phone up and lean it against something so it's propped up because you don't have access to a tripod for your phone, then do that. That is just that is the quickest and easiest way to just throw open either recording on your phone or throw open Facebook Live and just do your sermon that way. That's the basic. You just need to get some sort of video and audio out. And you're going to see all kinds of examples of people doing like really amazing production work, but it takes time and energy and people and skills to do that. And so not everyone's going to be able to do that. But I think what you can do is you can just start really small and then add something every week. Maybe that's add a musician or a pre-recorded thing, and slowly work your way up to just editing. If you're not an editor, then start with a free program. Start with iMovie or one of the free things. Like don't be
for music. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like don't try to go spend a whole bunch of money on getting an Adobe Suite or a Final Cut if you don't know how to use that. Things like Final Cut and Adobe, they're all offering free like 2 or 3 month trials right now. So try it out for 3 months and just use it for that period if you can, right?
Even just like I'm waving my phone because like I've edited video this week just on my phone. There's some free or cheap things you can get in the App Store. Just if you Google, best free app for editing video, you're going to find something for your iPad or your phone, your smartphone, where you could do basic editing, add some text, welcome to church, or, even put, I don't know, the lyrics for the song, whatever it is that you want to add after you've recorded it. You can do that right on the screen. Now, I want to also just mention even what we're doing here right now. People might be wondering, how did we do this? We're on Facebook Live. But if you do it from your own page, normally you've just seen a video. You're not seeing, I've got you're mirrored in my thing. So we've got you over here, and then we've got the Reach and Teach stuff. We've got this lower thirds. I can add in graphics. We can throw videos up. We can do all kinds of stuff in here with bringing in people and graphics. And this is a program called Ecamm. After this is done, I'm going to go on to the comment section and link to Ecamm Live. It's a free 14-day trial. So when I started it, I just used the free 14-day trial. I liked it, and so now I'm paying for it. But you can check it out as an option, and you could do exactly what we're doing here. You could do this for services on a Sunday, and you could even like be the pastor talking like this, and then you could have like the worship leader pop up in the corner, or you could have someone from the congregation pop up and share a story about what God's doing in their home while they're at home. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff you could do just with something as simple as this Ecamm program. But there's lots of other programs you could do live to YouTube and Facebook and all that kind of stuff.
And it's important also to like not stick to the same structure. If the same structure that your church
Yeah.
is used to just might not work. So it might mean that your pastor, your preacher, your speaker is more personable like this. It's they're reacting to comments, and maybe you are talking about a topic or a Bible verse or a book of the Bible, or you're in some sort of sermon series, but it's less maybe lecturing and more just conversation for
Yeah.
30 minutes. Like we have to try to break out of those molds. I think sometimes churches will think, oh, this is what we've done. These are the three, one, two, three that we always do. We have to now do that online. You're already changing all the rules anyways in order to make online work. So maybe it's time to push those aside and just
Right.
keep it simple. Have a conversation. And that's what it is depending on even the size of your church. A smaller church can do that really, really well. If you only have 50 to 100 people, it's way easier just to have a conversation and be okay that it's not perfect, not have
Yeah.
to sound perfect. Like stop the sermon and respond to someone and have a community discussion going on. It can be a great opportunity just to do something different and try new things. And we keeping in mind that one, we're trying to keep Jesus at the center of it. And two, you're trying to build and mentor and be with your community. That is the goal of what church is, right? Church is
Yeah.
a community.
That's
And
it.
so try to keep those things as the target.
So a couple things. First, I just like literally 5 minutes before we jumped on this, I was talking to a friend on Marco Polo. If anyone uses that video messaging app, so I want to tell you a quick story about that. But before we do that, if you're listening, I'd love to know in the comment section, is your church doing what you do on Sundays in a physical service, like in church? Are you just replicating that on, like you're trying to replicate that online, or have you changed the format and style of your services for online? Like, is it like the songs and the prayer and the giving and the preaching, or are you trying to do something else? The story I want to share, I just heard on Marco Polo from a friend at a local church in my city. She's in a smaller church, and they go on Zoom every week, and so they have people go, mute themselves until they tell them when to unmute themselves, and they even do breakout sessions. I'm not sure exactly the format of it, but they're just using Zoom because they're a small enough church that you can have, I think, up to 100 people on a Zoom, or 100 different connections. So 100 people might be 200 people because it's kids and couples and people who live in the same house. But you can have a few hundred people on one call. And but one of the things she said that I just thought was really moving, actually, so you could tell it meant a lot to her, was they were doing it live on Zoom, and they had the worship leader woman, just her and a guitar. And then there came a point, because it was all live, it was real time, it came a point where she just, I think, was overcome by the weight of the situation we're in and was emotional, and she wasn't able to keep singing. And so then people began to unmute themselves on Zoom, and they sang the song for her. Like, they carried the song forward when the woman leading couldn't sing for a few minutes. And it just sounded like this beautiful, powerful moment for them as a church community to lift each other up, care for one another, and do it on the internet. Like, it's so cool. And if you were in the same room, you would be able to, like, if someone lost their voice, you could raise yours. And so we can do the same online. The second thing is, like, with this whole platform we're using here, I think of some of the reasons. That's one of the reasons, James, I wanted you on the call, is you have stuff that you could actually use in this thing I'm using right now, Ecamm. You could have like a service intro video that starts on Facebook, like right here in this platform, and then it goes over to like the live people. You could have you have all kinds of graphics and stuff. Just this weekend, I launched with a church that I am still working with. They changed the name of their church and the branding of their church. It's a project we've been working on for a while. How it rolled out changed because it's all online and not physical stuff. But everything changed. Like, we did the website and the social media and graphics and all kinds of stuff. But we needed a video, and we had intended to film most of that like with our own visuals. But what are we going to do during a time where no one can really go anywhere and we can't capture video of the church? We used, James, I didn't tell you this, but we used your footage from, I should say, your company, Stock Hub's stock video footage to make a stunning, moving video to launch this church into their new brand with a big vision of why they called themselves what they called themselves. You can check it out if you want. It's called thewell.ca. Thewell.ca. If you want to go check out the website, and the video using James, your footage is there. But yeah, tell us about
Awesome.
what you have in terms of that kind of stuff for people to use. Like, what are some things that people could integrate that you have into their church right now when no one's meeting in person?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because this was kind of the whole idea around building stock video. So we have some stock video available on Visual Media Church, but then we also have a secondary site where we partner with other Christian producers to just basically release all their church-related, somewhat church-related kind of footage for Stock Hub. And it's the same thing. It's a membership where you can just download and use as much of it as you want for your church projects. And it's exactly what you're saying. Like, we have footage of cities and stuff. So I know there's been some people who have messaged us saying, hey, we had planned this to get some footage in the Middle East. Do you have Middle East footage? And we do. And so it is great, and it is better to be able to shoot your own content. But in situations like this, where a project like yours, Joe, doesn't stop, but you had planned on hiring a video person to do this, well, now this is the secondary option where you can still create all the content, still make it look great, and you might actually be saving a little bit of money because the content is really, really affordable to get a membership. So it's stuff like that where you can still be creating. And I think there are lots of great resources out there like Visual Media Church and like Stock Hub. We're not the only ones, but where you can find really, really affordable content to still create the media that you need to create. Like, the world hasn't stopped spinning and church isn't canceled. It's just we're no longer meeting in buildings, but the messaging doesn't change and the outreach doesn't change, and what we create isn't going to change because it will be back to normal at some point. And so what you don't want is just to stop or just to have a big gap and say, oh, well, we'll pick up the ball when it feels better, it's easier. Well, now is the time to actually kind of dig in a little bit, put your head down, and kind of keep motoring and powering through, because it really is a test of character. Like, whenever things get hard, are you the kind of person that backs off or pushes harder, right? And I think I for sure am the person that as soon as things get harder, it gets me amped up even more, actually. It makes me want to work harder. And I know I've seen a lot of church creative people basically saying like, oh, I'm working way harder and it's stressful, but I'm enjoying it because I'm discovering something new every day. And it broke me out of my routine that maybe was a little monotonous. So for some people, like, they are enjoying it. It's going to be a relief to get through this, but there's a lot of people really embracing it and are kind of excited about it. And it's caused them to reevaluate how they're doing things, how they're creating things, how they see themselves, how they see their future, how they see their own skills, what they're investing in themselves in their church. So as much as it's really a hard time and can be very scary when you're reading the news headlines, it's also very exciting because I'm seeing so much encouraging things going on Facebook groups. Like, there's a lot of encouragement going on. It's not all negative. It's actually all kinds of people helping one another out and becoming better, really.
Yeah. You know what? I just see our friend Paul Cox, great. He says great website, smiley face. So he's referring to the website I mentioned that will launch this weekend, thewell.ca. And we used footage from you, James, in terms of like the footage that we used for the launch video because we couldn't film in person. If people are just jumping on the stream, I'm just catching up. But the website is built on a platform from our friend Paul Cox, who's just here.
The Church Co.
Who's just the Church Co. I loved using this platform, so I'll do your free ad for you, Paul. I loved using this. I love using the platform. We'll link it below, and they also have just come out with something that has to do with like live church. Like, they have a nice interface that you can use on their platform for like live streaming with comments and notes and interaction and adding announcements and having people prayed for and all that kind of stuff. Or on YouTube, the comments are fairly public, but on this you can have a bit more of a catered experience for a really affordable price if people are looking for something like that. And your stuff's on your stuff's connected to the Church Co too.
So what's awesome about Paul's getting a great little ad right here, by the way. So he's definitely going to send me a message. But what I love about what Paul's doing with the Church Co, it's very much the same of what we believe Visual Media Church and Stock Hub is, that it doesn't have to be expensive. And you can often tell where people's heart is by like where their money is and what they charge for things. And so what's great about Paul is like he offers churches that couldn't afford to build a really great website, a website for like $25 to $50 a month, which is unreal. Like it's so beyond cheap. It's not even funny. But the website looks like it should be hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month.
Yeah.
And so
And they
we
build it
love
for
like,
you, or they
and
get
they
you
build it for you.
started,
They do,
right?
and they do like the
Yeah.
work for you. So what's amazing about that is it aligns with what we do is we know that what we're offering should be worth a lot more, but what we want to do is get it out to as many people as possible, and that's what the Church Co does. There's lots of website builders that are going to cost lots of money, or it's very little money, but you have to do all the work. So Paul just took the two best things and just said, I'll give you a lot of content and a website for really cheap. And
Right.
he wants to help as many churches as possible. And that's why we do lots of stuff with the Church Co as far as sharing content, and some of their members actually get access to Visual Media Church. So like we have a great relationship because our mission and values really, really align. And so it's great to hear that the project you just worked on like took those two resources, which are super affordable, and it created something awesome for a church, a whole new brand, really, for
like,
not money.
You know, I'm not being, no one's making money doing this show. I mean, I don't make money doing this show. I do it to help, and we're friends. And so because we're friends, I know you, and I trust just the integrity of the products you guys are building. And that's why I want people to know about them, because there are products out there. Nothing hurts me. And I know because of our conversations, nothing hurts us more than when we see churches who overspend needlessly on stuff that they didn't need to spend a bunch of money on. And that's my encouragement in so much of this, whether it's websites or stock video and all the media content that you produce, to make services look beautiful even when they're online. There's so much stuff that's cheap and affordable. Affordable is better than cheap, right? We should call it affordable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's
Affordable,
not cheap quality. It's high quality stuff.
Yeah.
But just trying to encourage in every area that you don't have to be fancy to get stuff done. I am currently talking to you out of the spare room in my house. I'm going to tip this way. You can see I'm in like a room with there's these lights that are leaning up, and I bought these lights on Amazon for $100 for these softbox lights. Softbox just means there's a box around the light that softens the light so that it's less harsh. And this mic is a bit fancier, but you could use the mic in your headphones. A lot of headphones have mics. I recommend using something that isn't the mic in your own computer because it just is a bit closer to your face. You could buy something like this if you want. This is a USB mic. It's $150, but there's other mics you can get for less than $100. Again, you could just use the headphones that you have that have a little microphone built in from the ones you got with your phone. You could use those. Start there. And with lighting, if you don't have lights, just make sure there's a window over there. Face it, get some natural light over here, pushing at your face, and it'll look better. And most of the stuff is free, is what I'm trying to say. cheap or free.
There's a lot of affordable options out there. I think people tend to just go to the places on Instagram or things that they've seen a lot without digging a little deeper to know that there's probably something that's the exact same for a quarter of the price. It just takes a little bit of digging, asking the right questions, looking at some different places, because you could very easily spend a lot of money on these things when you don't have to.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's even I tell people, if you're going to look on Amazon or B&H or different places like that, sometimes depending on what your outlook for this is, if this is just a temporary solution for you and you're like, we just need to make it through the summer, then maybe you don't need to buy the name brand thing, right? Yeah. The thing that is 4 times the price because of the brand associated. Maybe this is the time to buy the cheaper brand. And again, I say cheaper because it might not last as long as some of the name brand products, but you're also going to save a lot of your church's money or your out-of-pocket money to be able to do it.
Upgrade, right?
And you can always upgrade. If it's something you're really going to jump in with 2 feet going forward, then do that. But you don't have to get the name brand things to make it work, because that can really skyrocket your budget really, really fast.
Yeah. So, James, just as a last thing, if people want to find you and check out some of the stuff you're offering, I know you've been trying to produce, you and your team have been trying to get out a ton of stuff that's relevant for right now. Media stuff for the reality of live streaming and church at home. Where do people find you or find all this content?
You can find us on Instagram at Visual Media Church or just visualmediachurch.com. And the stock site that you were talking about that we work with other producers, it's called stockhub.com. It's hub.com.
Cool. Hey, James, thanks so much. Thanks everybody who's tuned in today. If you have questions, comments, you want to get the link to anything that we've mentioned, or you want like the exact link to the thing on Amazon that we talked about, happy to send anything to you. And James, make sure after we sign off, just leave a hey in the comments so people can find you or find your VMC stuff in the comments. Thanks, everyone. I'm here every Monday talking about how to reach and teach because this is the best news in the world. So we want to be the best communicators in the world. And yeah, we can't wait to see you guys next week for the show. Bye, everybody.